Good evening, guys. It is Thursday, February 6th, 2025, this Bathrobe business. I'm Georgi Oganov doing the last podcast of the week. Let's jump into it. A couple things I'm going to present. This is going to be another short and sweet podcast, but hopefully pretty impactful. Let's start with gold. So gold reported earlier today that it had a slight pullback, but so it went down from the highs that it was at because of an anticipated positive jobs report tomorrow. And for some reason, my screen isn't sharing. There it is. But now gold is actually sitting at 28.89, an all-time record once again. We'll see what happens tomorrow when jobs report. The job report is supposed to be moderate. It's not supposed to be insane, but it should be still positive and coming in at expectations. But if it's going to be a weak number, I think we can expect this number to go up drastically, or if the number falls below expectations. An interesting thing in regards to jobs, this story from Fox Business. I got to make sure that it doesn't accidentally hit play. Every time I turn on Fox Business, it wants to play a video. So jobs are becoming more and more scarce. Now, we are still in a very, very strong jobs market. No one is denying that. But what's interesting is that last year, in 2024, less people quit their jobs than in previous years. And hold on, I think the video is starting. Was it starting? No? Okay, good. So last year, only the number of people that left their jobs.
At Franklin Templeton, we're always innovating. A leader in
Stupid Fox Business has to do that every time. So the number of U.S. workers that quit their job in 2024 tumbled 11% to 39.6 million from a year before. Now, this is actually a pretty big shift because in 2022, during the time of the Great Resignation coming out of COVID, that number was 22% higher. And in addition, the job market has become more equal in that there's one job opening for every one person looking. Just about a year, 2 years ago, back in March of, I guess 3 years ago now, in March of 2022, there were 2 job postings for every person that was looking. So it was definitely a market that was powerfully inflationary based towards the individual looking for a job. But here we have the market becoming much more stable. So I think it's very possible that tomorrow, when the Labor Department reports jobs, it might be the first time in a long time that jobs actually underperform below expectations because we're seeing more normalization in the market on top of all of the layoffs we've been seeing coming from multiple sectors, including now government itself. Let's jump into some earnings. So Amazon had actually pretty good earnings. However, like many companies, their guidance and outlook does not look positive for the next quarter. Like a lot of other companies, they're calling for more muted sales. And like many tech companies, what they're doing is trying to use AI as a way to deflect it. Amazon is planning to spend $100 billion this year to capture a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity in AI. Of course they are. This is up from $83 billion from the previous year. So quite the doubling down on AI in general. It's probably not necessarily going to yield the results they want, but it definitely will help in bolstering their stock price. Next one, I'm going to talk about just a minor story, but also relates to the outlook because after every single earnings report we've seen this week, every single company is coming back with more and more of a muted outlook towards 2025. Right now, we have Elf Beauty. It's a popular cosmetics line. They're seeing weaker sales in January as well from a year before. So it seems like this is going to be a trend. This is going to be a year of some contraction. Maybe contraction is not the right word, but it's going to be definitely restricted growth. In other news with AI, OpenAI is now searching for data centers across the United States, 16 new data centers to be specific. Currently, they're visiting locations in Oregon, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. This is part of that Project Stargate. They're planning to build 10 new data centers across the United States. Oregon, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin is where they're looking this week. However, other states on the roster include us here in Utah, as well as, let's find it. It was New York, Virginia, Washington, West Virginia, Ohio, New York, Nevada, Maryland. So Utah would be a great fit for it. We already actually have a lot of data centers for Facebook and the NSA, but nobody's supposed to know that. We've actually had an NSA database here before the NSA was even well known, back when people were still calling it no such agency. But Utah is definitely home to many data centers and a strong tech environment. So I think it would be very well adapted. However, that's not the only prerequisite. A lot of times it is energy and cheap access and quick access to energy, because these data centers just gobble energy like nothing we've ever seen. A lot of these data centers use more energy in a day than some cities. So whatever state they decide to go into, the grid is going to have to be very, very robust. I wouldn't be surprised if in Utah they end up in Delta. Delta is a very interesting city. If you're not familiar with Utah, it's about, I believe, 3 hours south of where we are here in Salt Lake. I've actually always wanted to visit because they have one of the most powerful coal fire refineries in the United States. In fact, despite what California may tell you, most of the energy for LA comes from the Delta power plant. And now they are switching actually a heavy amount of it into natural gas. And I'm not exactly sure if that's in addition to the coal fire, that they're adding natural gas or replacing one for the other. But I know they are expanding with natural gas energy in Delta as well. And that could be a very good place to put a new data center. There's also actually a very strong, smart community in Delta. When you run operations like that, an energy facility as powerful as the one we have, you need a lot of engineers, you need a lot of technical people. So there's a lot of smart people in Delta that can probably handle that job. Next story I want to talk about is Affirm. So if you've watched my channel before, I've talked about how I think this buy now, pay later is a very powerful sector that's up and coming. I think it's going to be more and more of a major player every year, and all the data just backs it. Every year, Affirm and Klarna, the one I've explained to you before, seem to be growing bit by bit. Right now, they had Affirm in general had a monster quarter. They expected 23 cents per share versus an expected loss of 15 cents. They had revenues of 866 million versus 807 million estimated. So they had a fantastic quarter. In addition, I've talked specifically about Klarna because I think they're actually more of an online retailer that's focused on buy now then pay later, rather than Affirm, which is a traditional financing company that is really just geared at financing purchases outside of their own application. But I think this is a very powerful sector. It's not necessarily the best thing that we're increasing debt, but no time in America's history outside of recession has there ever been a time where Americans didn't add more debt into their pockets. So debt always grows. Credit always grows in the United States. We are a capital market. It's one of our greatest and most powerful exports. So I think this is just another sector that's going to grow very, very aggressively. I will probably do some investing with Affirm here in the next little bit. Last story I'm going to share is just about the great Salt Lake City. So Salt Lake, rising air pollution threat is linked to dementia. So the new study came out from the University of Washington showing that pollutants in the air can heighten dementia. Now, before everybody starts saying, oh, we need to do something, let's not forget that most of the inversion and most of the problems we have with air quality are actually the result of wildfires. And I'd also like to remind everyone before we start going crazy that we're not managing our Forest Service as well, let's not forget that 90% of the time we have poor air because of California. I've talked about on this channel before that we should be suing California for violation of air quality, and there is actually a precedent to this. I've talked about it on the channel before. There's, I believe, 3 or 4 major Supreme Court cases where one state has sued another over pollutants in the atmosphere. And so I think Utah definitely has a precedent. Not to kick a state when it's down, but I think we should kick California when it's down because it seems to want to dictate what every other state does. So I think that Utah should be suing California for its air quality, especially now that we have data showing that it's causing major harm to our society. And obviously the elderly are going to be affected, but so will the very young and the very sick. So that's it. I'll leave you with that positive note. I hope you guys have a productive Friday. I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend, and I'll see you guys back here on Monday.